Hello, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Rixie, one of the creators here at the Collector's Maze Network. My guest today is an artist, a writer, a producer. You can see his work in DC, Marvel, Charlton, now Disney, Warner Brothers, and Lucasfilm Comics, and he has taught his craft to others for over 20 years. Everyone, Kansas City's very own comic book legend, Rick Stacy. Rick, man, welcome to the
Thank
maze.
you. You're very kind with your words. Thank you very much.
I'm excited to sit and talk with you. My exposure to comic books isn't great. It's good, and so I'm excited for this opportunity because I want to learn a lot about comics, and I'm hoping
I'm here to teach you. This will be marvelous.
Wonderful. All right, so let's start. Give us a kind of the highlight, your origin story. I would love to hear the highlights of your origin story.
Okay.
What inspired you?
Okay. Well, TV inspired me because as a very, very small lad, I was put in front of a TV with those little small screens, the picture tubes that were doing black and white, and I would watch the halcyon TV programs of the 50s. A lot of them just tests for TV shows too, and I'd watch it from dawn till dusk. And during the confines of my consuming all the programming, there was a TV show that really was my favorite. And it was the 1950s Adventures of Superman.
Oh, great.
Starring George Reeves. George Reeves is a name that crosses my path every day. And if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here. So, being a little kid back in the 50s, the old black and white TVs, watching Superman, I would take a bath towel and tuck it in behind my collar here, my shirt, and then imagine that I was Superman, like all the little kids played like that. And I would look at our third floor apartment window in downtown Kansas City across the sky, and I would see Kansas City's Power and Light building. Anybody that's been around here has probably seen that beautiful, beautiful building. But to me, it was the Daily Planet. So I absorbed all those TV shows, lived them, loved them, learned from them, because they were morality plays. And got to be a tad bit older, not much older. We moved to a rural area outside of Kansas City on the Kansas side.
Okay.
We're from Missouri, but we're a hoot and a holler away from state line. And in this part of the country, we say hoot and holler a lot.
I've heard it a time or two.
But we lived in a semi-rural area called Overland Park, Kansas. And I still was just enamored with TV, especially The Adventures of Superman. Now, the day after my 7th birthday, that's right, June 16th, 1959, got up from the party before and all the ice cream and cake and the papers and wrappings and junk and stuff like that all kids look forward to at their birthday parties. And my little chore was to go out to the driveway and get the newspaper, which was the Kansas City Times, the morning version of the Kansas City Star. That was my little chore, and I'd go out to get the paper, and I looked down at the paper, and I saw a black and white publicity photo of Superman.
Oh, nice.
And it's George standing with his hands on his hips, and I thought, holy smoke! Because in those days, Roy Rogers, Hopalong Cassidy, Wizzo the Clown, all came to the city to open up car dealerships or have grand opening for grocery stores and what have you. I thought, my gosh, I know Superman's gonna be here. And I ran inside with the paper. My mom said, what are you excited about? I said, Mom, Superman's in the paper. And she took the paper and she popped the string off it like that. And I said, what's it say? What's it say? What's it say? And she said, Superman killed himself.
Oh no!
Yeah, I made that face. And that absolutely diffused, depressed, and I was crestfallen with that news. And how do you be a little kid with Superman that nothing can hurt, and reckon with the fact that not only did he die, he killed himself?
Oh.
So I wandered. Whatever my mom said to me after that, I don't know. I can't remember her saying anything at all. I wandered back to my room. And we had lots of number 2 pencils around the house and notepads because my dad worked for the Kansas City Star. And I sat down and I started drawing almost immediately stick figures. And I put a cape on it. And I would draw good guys and bad guys in Superman. And cars and police cars and this and Superman. And flying through buildings and Superman. And I've never, ever to this day, stopped. Now,
That is great.
as far as I was concerned, I was in mourning. And the next year, 1960, I was at Red's Barber Shop on Santa Fe in downtown Overland Park. And my dad said, "You stay here at the barber shop till I come to get you." And he went off for a couple of beers. And I waited and waited, and I thought, I don't want to stay here. So I had the change from the haircut, which was 25 cents, and I walked next door into Shalinsky's Rexall Drugs. And I had 25 cents. In those days, that's going to buy a lot of candy and gum and this and that and what have you. And I looked at the magazine rack, and the bottom shelf was just bright colors. And they were red, and they were yellow, and they were blue. And I saw this figure in the middle of this publication, and it was Superman. I'd never seen him in color. I had no idea what this curl was on top of his head. And in little boxes structured on each side were the main characters from the Superman mythos, Lois and Jimmy and Perry and this and that, what have you. And it was the very first Superman annual. And it was 25 cents, no tax back then, and I bought it. Not only did I whisk home with that, and I think the time I spent in my room for disobeying my father was okay because I was reading the comic book. I read it cover to cover with as good a reading skills as I had back then, but it became art lessons to me.
Okay.
And so I kept looking at that, wanting to trace that, and emulating those characters, which was a step above the stick figures I was drawing, and draw these morality plays where good always wins, people are saved and taken care of, and the bad guys are sent on their merry way.
Wow. What a story, Rick. What a story. So do you think, I mean, had that tragic turn in George's life, do you think that it, if that had not affected you or that had not happened, do you think that would have changed your path?
Yes, absolutely. I come from a family of guys that wanted to play pro baseball, and I had a great cousin and a cousin that made the major leagues just for a little while, and my dad really wanted to, but he wasn't able to do just that, and I was the heir apparent to practice all the time, and take my steps towards being a professional baseball player. Well, I like playing sandlot baseball and Boy Scout baseball and stuff like that, but I think that would have been the push and the pressure for me, and I had found another outlet, and it was drawing and telling stories. I'm a storyteller. You're a storyteller. We're all storytellers to a certain degree.
Storytelling is so important. I mean, you see it in almost every aspect of humanity. I mean, even way back when. I mean, storytelling is something that exists in almost every culture and every point, right?
Yeah, if you go back to hieroglyphics, and I taught this in my class, you could walk into a cave and you could see cat's eye, naked lady lion, cat's eye, knife. And to somebody that wrote that up on those walls, that was a warning, like, don't drink this water, it's poison, or the enemy comes around the southern bend, or it could be a joke. It could be two Marines and a Martian walk into a bar. You have no idea.
The last one
but
ducks.
It's all storytelling. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That's good. Quack. Yeah. And you take those opportunities to tell stories, and I taught my students, you do that for escapism, of course, in many cases, but to entertain, to inform, and to evoke emotion. Entertaining isn't always humor, but it's contemplative thought that you give them in these drawn out dramas. So it's a necessity, and it's even used, of course, as you know, for art therapy.
Wow. I think any form of creativity can be very cathartic and very good for. I mean, mental health is huge, and you digging into the comics like that and taking you down this trajectory, I think that's amazing. I just want to give a shout out. There's a local group here in town. I don't know if you met them, Cause for Hope. And they're dedicated to mental health, and they build it around cosplay and all things in the pop culture comic world. So if you ever have a chance to meet any of those gals, April and Megan, I love what they're doing. I love that they're promoting mental health within the cosplay community, and It's a great thing.
I think it's great, and I think mental health issues are probably the most important thing that we can turn our attention to right now. And if you don't believe me, just turn on the TV or look online, or if you find a newspaper, read that. But
Exactly.
There's a mention of therapy. I don't want to get too far down the road with this, but can I segue for just a second? Okay. I had done, and this is under the umbrella of therapy, where this takes you, or in this case, me. Obsessed with all this stuff, and I'll take a big 40-year gap or whatever. A few years ago, I was doing intellectual properties in Kansas City, and I was doing books to movies, YA books on their own, some licensing, some TV, and again some movie stuff. So I would find myself being out in LA and doing meetings, and I shot a TV pilot and a bunch of stuff like that. Was so much fun. I will say, if I was really good at it, I'd still be there, but it's a whole different kind of business. But I was invited by my producer to go to a strip mall and help stack up chairs, the folding chairs, and see a rough cut, incomplete version of Ben Affleck's Hollywoodland.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Hollywoodland?
It's been a little bit since I've seen it. I think I've seen
Hollywoodland is Ben Affleck's take on the death of George Reeves.
Okay.
And Ben Affleck played the role of George Reeves, did it very convincingly too.
I guess I
Diane Lane.
I guess I haven't seen that. I'm going to have to look it up.
Two things. See it, and number two, caveat. I'm kind of old school. The language is just beyond, I'm a veteran. The language is just beyond terrible. I shouldn't be shocked by it, but I was shocked.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. PG-13 warning.
Yeah.
PG-13 warning.
And,
so parents, listen
just
up.
Dreadful. As bad as it could get, it gets worse. But I got to see that, and I finally saw somebody working through what may have been that evening where we lost George Reeves and why we lost him. Ben Affleck was fantastic. Again, Diane Lane was in there too. She played his married lover. That's why there's a wondering if there wasn't a love triangle that offed George Reeves and somebody didn't, again, shoot him or whatever. But jumping ahead to the end of the movie, we were all invited to go to Malibu to a party on a rooftop.
Okay.
And I thought, it's kind of cool. Kansas boy goes out to a rooftop party in Malibu with all these movie folks. This is really kind of neat. So I'm on the roof, and it's like 10 o'clock at night, and I'm walking around the party, and I've got a drink, and there's a long buffet table just under that beautiful starry sky, and I'm picking up my celery and my little cherry tomatoes and my little dip and holding my drink and trying to behave myself. And I'm hearing a woman's voice from the other side of the table as we're both segueing to the end of the table. And this woman's voice is singing, "Nobody grieves for George Reeves. Nobody grieves for George Reeves." And I kind of halfway looked up. I thought, that's tacky. And she said, that was a big popular song after he died. I looked up, and I kind of recognized this woman. And she looked at me, and she said, "Hi, did you enjoy the movie?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Me too, I'm a big George Reeves fan." And I realized I was talking to and coming around the table face to face with Loretta Swit, Hot Lips from MASH. So we're talking, and hey, I'm a big fan. I love MASH, and you're great and stuff. And we talked about George Reeves, and she noticed that I had a Superman watch. I've got probably a nice collection of little watches. This is if you can see this, little Batman watch. I wear that from time to time.
Love that. I'm somewhat of a watch nut. I mean, I'm getting, this isn't like, I'm working on it, and I've got another one here that I just picked up. You can't have too many watches.
Yeah, exactly. And Loretta said, "I see you have a Superman watch on." I said, "Yeah, I think since this all started, I've had a Superman something on, a T-shirt, a watch, or this or that or that." And she said, "Well, how did you get into this?" And I told her my story about George's death. And she came around the table, and she kissed me.
How sweet.
And when Hot Lips Hooligan kisses you, Hot Lips, here, she kind of kisses you. And I said, "Thank you." I said, I don't know why you did that. And she said, "After your story, don't you realize, my boy, that you are in therapy? That's why you draw all this. That's why you wear." You know what? I thought, she's probably right, but it's such a part of who I am now, I don't care. But I think she hit the nail on the head. So mental health is very important to me, and that's how I worked out my situations here. And it went a more creative route than some of the other ways disappointment may have led somebody on a path.
Mm, mm. I love that story. I love that story. So, what? Let's get in a little to the process of creating
Okay.
comics. Just touch on it. What would you say? What are the important components to a good comic? I mean, what makes you want to read that comic for you?
For the creator to want to provide a partnership, for the creator to want to let me be the co-pilot. I want to go with the creator. I want them to take me where they want to take me, to see the story, to hear the story. From the splash page to the next two facing pages, to any interruptions throughout the book, to feel like the story, the timing, the pace of it in a comic book, which is very, very important, have allowed me to take this wonderful ride into escapism, and at the end to be entertained or educated or to feel emotion, to learn something, and know that that person's done their job when I walk away thinking that was memorable.
Mm-hmm. So to take you on a ride, on a journey.
Yeah, and that's the writer and the artist. You might have a great writer and a lousy artist. You might have a lousy writer and a great artist, and you might have both great a writer and artist and this is old school stuff, lousy lettering. And you've got to make sure that everything weaves together to embrace that reader. Like going to Disney World. It's like sitting here, strap in, you'll be back in 25 minutes. And that's how I look at comics.
Wow. So a well done comic, you're going to want to read it a second time, and a third time.
Oh, yeah.
And a third time.
Yeah. Yeah, it becomes an enjoyable experience. And then it becomes like a scrapbook or a yearbook. It's like, man, I haven't looked at Kingdom Come for a long time. I'm going to spend the afternoon with a cupcake and a glass of milk and go through Alex Ross and Mark Waid's Kingdom Come trade paperback again. And for me, it's just one of the best experiences that I've ever had.
Nice. What would you say? So, what would you say are the Mount Rushmores for you for comic books? I mean, if you were going to have, or let's say I'm going to go out for a week out of the country, and I want to take something with me. I want to take some comics with me. What five would you tell me to take?
Well, it'd be tough. That is a toughie. Because when you said Mount Rushmore,
Yeah.
I'm starting to see the people in the comics that mean so much to me. The Julia Schwartzes, the Kurt Swans, the artists, the Neil Adams, and what. But if I was going to take something with me, I would take Kingdom Come.
Kingdom Come.
Yeah. And I got books downstairs. I've got spinner racks. I've got stuff all over. I would take the Superman Sunday comics from World War II.
Oh, okay.
That's two. May take the Dark Knight.
Oh.
And I'm just forgetting others. There's so many, I've got all the Marvel Masterworks and DC Archives and stuff. I would take Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos.
Okay.
I would take the Marvel Masterworks of the FF, the very first 20 issues that are in there. I would take the first Spider-Man Marvel Masterworks with Ditko. Then I'd also come back in and take the Stan Lee, Romita reprints too, because that was very pivotal to me too. And I'm sure I'm forgetting others. It's really, really hard. But there are probably fewer that I would take than the ones I would leave back, because a lot of them just aren't my cup of tea.
I feel like, and it's just like most other big IPs. I mean, there's different flavors. So like, some comics seem more, adult themed. Some seem more, geared towards like the 12-year-old on Saturday morning. And
Yeah.
and that's I I like getting, recommendations. And so those comics, a lot of what you mentioned, are those still in print? Can you still get those?
I really don't know. I think you could still get Masterworks, and you can get them not only in the hardbound, but the trade paperback versions of those if you go online. All these are available, I think, at bookstores or online or even at half-price books. I picked up stuff. I did forget two that just popped into my mind that are of great influence to me, and I love them dearly. Number one, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, and Dick Giordano. Short-lived, but it was influential and just a great time for comics then, number one. Number two, maybe my favorite comic strip is the reprints of the first few years of Peanuts by Charles Schulz, because I just get a giggle out of those, and I love his brushy work in the early stages, long before Charlie Brown became a Christmas ornament and was selling cupcakes for Dolly Madison. So
Nice. So give me the rundown, the five again, just so we can have them all at once, and I can put them in a nice short that we can
okay,
publish. So your
okay.
top five. Now that you've got them in your head, what are the top five that you would tell me? You're going away for a week. You want to explore the world
Okay.
of comics. These are the ones you have to have.
Kingdom Come, number one. Number two, the Peanuts reprints. And that by reprints, I'm talking about one book that reprints a series of strips over a year. Kingdom Come, Peanuts, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, the Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams days. That's three. I get two more. Superman reprints from World War II, the Sunday supplements done by Wayne Boring, and the other one would be Marvel Masterworks FF, the first 2 years, whatever that is. So
Nice. There you have it. There.
it made it hard to choose, but if I'm going away, I'm going to take
Yeah.
those.
That's great. That's a great list. I think some of those I'm familiar with, and some of them I want to dig into. And I'm definitely going to dig into Hollywoodland now that you've mentioned that. I'm always looking for a good film
Yeah,
to watch, and I love
yeah.
the George Reeves. That it's his story, and it ties into your origin. I mean, how great is that?
Exactly. And to be so fortunate as to finally get work in comics, and then do some traveling, then do comic shows next. As soon as we turn the corner on the year, next spring, I will have been a guest. Thank you. Uh, at Comic Cons for 50 years. So it's a long time. But during the confines of that, I got to hang out with Noel Neill, who was Lois Lane in the Superman TV show. I got to hang out with Jack Larson, who was Jimmy Olsen, and I got to hang out with Adam West and Burt Ward and Dean Cain and all these great actors that were in the TV shows and the movies and stuff, and got a nice letter from Brandon Routh, who was Superman, Superman Returns, and on the WB. So those things, I really, really cherish those, because that's the connection. Their creative interpretation, my creative interpretation, and then you connect. And in some cases, become pretty close friends with a couple of them.
That's great. I love that. I mean, you've gotten to meet Adam West, and you mentioned Dean Cain. I've actually met Dean at the ICT Comic Con in Wichita one year. Yeah,
Good, yeah, yeah.
wonderful fella.
I hung out with him then, and about the year before that, he was at Smallville Comic Con. And we just hung in the green room and talked, and he was just wonderfully gracious and talkative to me. And my wife goes with me, and she charmed him, and he charmed her, and I thought that was charming. So he's a great guy.
I've gotten my wife to go to a few conventions. She's made it in the door a few times, but she's a hotel gal. She's like, I'm going for the hotel, when they get away from home.
That's what, my wife will hang for a little bit with me, and she's a great company and stuff. Then she takes the car and goes to Kohl's, and then uses all her Kohl's cash. So it's fun.
Yeah, Kohl's Cash and hotel points. That's what it's all about.
Exactly right. Exactly
And
right.
I'm also a Kansas City native, so we have probably one of the biggest Comic Cons here in the Midwest that I know of, which is Planet Comic Con every year. And
Of course, yeah, I've been to every one.
everyone, okay, I've made it to 3 or 4 now, and I missed last year, unfortunately, which I heard was just crazy busy.
Yeah, it was big.
Yeah,
It's like everybody at Arrowhead walking into your kitchen.
yeah,
It was just so much, so many people, too peoply out there.
Yeah. And I enjoy that as much as I do, but some of the smaller cons are nice. So, I mean,
I love those too. That's why I'll be a guest at ICT this August 31st,
all right.
I believe it is. Then I'm doing a show in Fort Leonard Wood, my first, and looking forward to doing that. And those are more relaxed and slower pace, but it's still fun to do all the shows while you still can do the shows.
Because not everyone can get to all the larger cons, and some. I mean, it's hard for some people that crowd phobia is real, right? I mean, and so
Oh yeah,
that's why.
absolutely. I did Chicago Con for 28 years in a row. 28 years in a row. From the time we would all go up to Chicago Con to I would show my portfolio year after year after year to the time that I started to get some work, to the time that I would go back and then talk to the people I'd be working for in the future. And it was great. It was an outlet, and I never would have connected comics if I didn't do that over all those years. But it was an arduous trip, and it was very expensive, but it's what you had to do. So at least we discovered there was community, and there was a path to professional work. So hooray for the cons.
Yeah, love cons. Yeah, any day you can go to a con is a good day.
Absolutely.
All right, how important is alliteration to the alter ego name? I mean, how important is that?
You know, I learned a lot. We mentioned conventions. The second show I did, I was a guest,
Okay.
and I was gobsmacked to be the only artist guest with Stan Lee, and this was in 1975. And we were at a one-day show at a shopping mall in Minnesota.
Wow.
This guy said, my kid wants to have a Comic Con for his birthday, and he did it. So he rented out a room in the shopping mall. He brought me in and my wife too. And Stan came in for one day.
Wow.
And the master of writing, the pacing, the alliteration, and the colorful person that he was, Stan Lee, was mesmerizing. So I tend to speak in alliteration a lot, and I've got to give that up to him for planting that seed with me.
It's memorable without a doubt. I mean, anything with alliteration, and my last name is Ray, so Rixie Ray. I mean, it's just one of those names that just works. And he nearly almost all of his characters. I mean, at some form, he had alliteration in their name. Am I right?
Peter Parker, yeah. And then he'd write his own copy. It'd be like, next month, True Believers, the pulse-pounding pandemonium of power and projection and. Okay, Stan, hooray. But
how far can you go?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved him for it. You know what? He brought an intense amount of fun to comics that have kind of languished for a while as DC was evolving.
Yeah. Well,
Evolving, not dissolving. So.
For me, I mean, I think I would be more into the lighthearted, fun comics. I mean, I mentioned, and one question I want to get into is talking about the Star Wars universe, but there's a flavor for me of Star Wars for just about every every person, everyone's likes. I mean, you've got something that appeals to the 12-year-old, which I think is what the Mandalorian is right now, and then you've got something that appeals to the older crowd, which is your Andor, your Rogue One, and things like that. So my appeal, I love that. What I loved about the Mandalorian is it felt like Saturday morning cartoons for me. I mean, it felt like a Saturday morning show. It was exciting, it was fun, and it was hopeful. And I enjoy that. I enjoy feeling uplifted at the end of the story.
Yeah, because I think anytime somebody takes you on this trip that we talked about, where you're just the co-pilot and they're driving, and they lead you into a 5-car pileup.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, okay, I get it, but it's not really what I wanted to do.
Don't leave me here.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't leave me here. Yeah, exactly. And there are, and that's the great thing I think about the art form is that there is something for everyone. So that's why I feel like your top 5 list is going to be a good top 5 list for me to take and dig into.
Plus, it's a snapshot of my life, of what I like. People will ask me when I'm drawing, they'll say, who's your favorite character? And I would tell them, it depends on the day. If it's a good, happy, great, optimistic day, of course, Superman. If it's dark and I'm kind of sullen, and we all have those days, it's Batman. If I'm feeling my youthful glow that comes, not too many times in my age does it come back, but when it does come back, it comes back with a vengeance. And I was only probably like 2 years younger than Peter Parker in the strips, so it's very Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm feeling my Woodstock experiences, I am very Green Lantern and Green Arrow during Denny O'Neill's run with Neil Adams, because that was that Woodstock era. So
Nice. What are you seeing out there that's exciting you out in the creative world, whether it's film or comic, or what out there is exciting you?
Less and less, as a matter of fact, with all due respect, because I've seen so many good things. I've seen a lot of things come up and you think, okay, that's kind of dull by comparison. But these characters, Siegel and Schuster, I don't believe ever thought they would create a character and the beginnings of a mythos that would last 90 some odd years. So they've been redone and redone and redone, and that's good. Like you said, there is an era for everyone. But right now, I'm looking to Mark Waid, who's a friend of mine. His new Batman and Robin books coming out whenever they come out. I just picked up Action Comics. It's got the weird. Here, I'll show you. Hold on.
Absolutely.
And knock over my microphone here. This lovely issue, if you can see it. Can you see it there?
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Okay. Yeah. Not nuts about the cover, but it's got some really good Superman stuff in here. And I mean, the story's kind of good. And to see Superman take the armaments away from an alien and then rip it up with his teeth, I thought that was kind of cool.
Nice. So that's Action Comics. What issue or is that for people listening?
They should look at this because this is Gail Simone, and this is number 1067.
Okay.
And it's part 1. I picked this up 2 weeks ago. So I hit the comic shop once a month and look for these. It really is good stuff. And I'm sure there's other good stuff out there, but a lot of it doesn't do much for me. But Mark Waid's work is good. That was good. And I'm trying to think if anything else has really led me into the story. It's hard because comics you used to buy with change. And it was a couple of bucks. When Jeanette Kahn took over DC Comics as the publisher in the mid-70s, she said DC will eventually stand for dollar comics. We thought, oh my God, they're only 30 cents now. You're going to ruin the bit. They're 30 cents now. But now when I buy a comic, I've got to really want to read the comic because I don't collect them.
Yeah.
And depending upon the storylines, I can't give them to my grandsons because a lot of them are not appropriate for my grandsons. So I've got to realize that this is a $4.99 price point, if you can see that someplace here. I don't know if
so
you can.
$4.99, yeah.
And that is 2 lean cuisines. So that's 2 lunches I would lose.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's great. If you want to collect that stuff, when I'm done with this, I'll just probably give it to half-price books or something because I'll get nothing for it. But other than the experience. But it gets to the point that one comic equals 2 meals, and I've got a problem with that.
Yeah, makes sense. So you mentioned you can't hand some to your grandkids. Is there a rating on comic books? I'm a somewhat of a novice. So
I don't know. Yeah, there may sure yes there is. And
Okay.
some of them I see ratings for different. For preteen or teen or whatever. You have to go look at the comic stores, and a lot of really good comic store proprietors will guide you through that. And I took my grandsons who are 13 and 10 like 2 weeks ago. I said, "Come on, you guys get 1 comic each," but really I bought them 2. And I told the proprietor, William at Elite Comics here in town, I said, "Is this okay for a kid?" Because he knows what might be objectionable in part for him. And it's like, don't look at that. And you think, okay, this is okay, but this isn't over here. So you can't just buy comics and give them to kids. The just horrible, excessive amount of gratuitous violence and sexual interplay and confusion and preaching and stuff, social engineering that comes through has no place, I don't think, in comics. That's for fun. It's for all access, and it's escapism.
Yeah.
But there's an issue of a Batman title a few years ago where they have kind of a cardboard cover, and it's got a really ripped up, distorted Joker face. And in the story, and I don't know, do you have young people listening to this podcast?
Yeah, I mean they'll be all over. Yeah, exactly.
Like children?
Yeah, I mean
Okay.
we don't
Okay.
unless and it's okay if we go a little more because we can mark it so we won't get to children.
Yeah.
And I'm
Okay.
very
So I'm going to be cool with that because everybody should hear this,
good.
especially their parents. I believe, let the parents decide. But there is such a radical, violent sense of self-disfigurement that is beyond reprehensible. If the old editors that I knew at DC even thought this would happen, they'd not only fire you, they'd push you into the Hudson River. And as bad as you could fantasize this being, 10 times
I hate to hear
worse.
that. I hate to hear that, Rick.
Yeah.
I mean,
So it's self-mutilation and the mutilation of somebody else, and then they say, isn't this pleasurable? This feels so good, and you think, God help you,
Yeah.
because this is just terrible.
so there's not a physical like on movies. There's not a physical rating on it to say R, PG-13 or anything like that.
I don't. I know that there are some on some books.
Okay, it just depends on the book.
Because I don't go looking every week at books anymore because it's too expensive and
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff is not my cup of tea. When I want to read comics, I'll read like the reprints I told you about. I'll read books about comics, like the story of Marvel Comics, or other books I've got here that talk about Siegel and Schuster or George Reeves or what have you. I'm looking at my bookcase over here, but. You just got to be really, really careful because a lot of things are going out there that I don't think are for mass consumption.
So
Then you wonder why kids get so disenfranchised with fantasy or some imitate what it contains. Let's put it this way. When I was a kid, I watched Superman. And I put a towel in my shirt, as I told you. And I climbed down the roof of the garage. And I jumped off. I fell and I bit through my tongue. And it was bleeding and swollen. I thought, wait a minute. My mom and dad taught me, not necessarily literally, but you can do anything you put your mind to in this country. They should have said except fly.
yeah, within the laws of theory or of physical.
Yeah. But I'm 6. What do
Yeah.
I know? And I climbed back up on that roof with that cape tucked in, that bath towel tucked in, and I jumped off again, and it didn't help me. So, needless to say, people do imitate what is contained in movies, in pop culture, in comics, and let the buyer beware. Okay, that's fine, but I think there's some responsibility
Absolutely.
that needs to be addressed and identified and shared for this kind of really, really scary kind of social engineering.
So, would you say that probably the advice to give to parents is to find a good comic book shop, that has a very knowledgeable staff, and to make sure you inquire. If you're not reading it yourself, make sure you inquire.
Or grab it and thumb through the thing. I mean, look through it yourself. I had every kid's fantasy come true when I was working for Marvel in DC many, many years ago. And on Fridays, there's a great big cardboard box of that week's Marvels free, of that week's DC's free. And I'm not going to read all. I mean, I loved it. This is, rub that genie lamp and out comes the wishes, and I'm getting free books every week.
Nice.
So I grabbed the books and looked through them, and my kids would be there. They were younger at that point, and there was a Spider-Man tale, and I'm sure it was just fine, but it was about a kid that was being abused by his father. And I don't know what kind of abuse it was. I think there was alcohol in play, and I'm thinking, this is not for you. Okay, so I took the books that weren't for kids, and I took them into the office because I had a day job working in corporate America, got to pay the bills, and it worked out well for me as a creative director in marketing and advertising. But I tell my friends who like comics, because it's a creative world that we worked in, I said, take what you want, it's yours. And they would get those things that might have been intended for an older audience, so more mature audience.
Well, yeah, good to know. I have thumbed through a few that I'm like, I don't, And I'd bought in some for I actually went overseas on a trip and was taking a gift, and I'm like, and I went to a good shop, and I said, okay, this needs to be appropriate. Help me find the right comics, and they did a great job. So that's what I would caution all parents. I mean, if you're going out buying, especially for youngster, or like you said, read it yourself. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. I had a woman that was a friend of mine I worked with in corporate America, and of course I was teaching at the Art Institute at night and on Saturdays too. I had the adult class for 3 hours, then I had the youth class for a couple hours on Saturday. And her daughter was an older youth; she was probably 13 or 14, and she was very talented, and she was drawing in what was becoming a very popular style. It was anime back then, and I looked to see what she was using for influence, and there were these, of course, wonderful black and white anime books. And then her mom comes to me and says, she's starting to talk about this, going to experiment with that, et cetera, et cetera. I said,
oh,
give me that book. And I looked through there, and there are things in there that were so prohibitive, no influential young person should see them without their folks knowing about it.
Yeah.
If parents want to say, hey, that's okay, knock yourselves out. But it did some harm to this young lady. So
but my forte in anime, the one that I love is Avatar. I don't know if it's a series you've seen, but I love that series. It's very it's a great series and I enjoy it. So I mean, any parents looking to find some good anime for their kids, that's a great one.
Because there's something for everybody, and that's what I think is really, really good.
Aang and the group, great group. So if you haven't seen it, I think it's something you'd probably enjoy. So let's go over to teaching. Tell us. So are you currently teaching? What have you been teaching?
I will be doing private lessons out of my home here because I've had people come by and I can work one-on-one with them. But I actually create a syllabus for them, and if I'm going to spend my time doing it, then I want you to get something from this. You will either enhance and enjoy your hobby, or we're going to put you on the path to work. That work would be who to contact and where to contact people, or in today's world, how to self-publish, because I've self-published, and most everybody else I know has self-published or found smaller indies. The days of saying we have the big two, we have the big two, we have the big two, Marvel and DC, so important. I said that 3 times. Those days are gone. Because that's what you had to do. You were either at one or the other. But people would come to me and say, show me how to, and you fill in the blank. Tell a story, improve my anatomy, work with lighting, work with color, or what have you. That many years ago I went to the Kansas City Art Institute, and I told them, I said, I work in corporate America, but I do comics, and I've got some chops, I think. I'd like to teach here. And they said, comic books, cartooning? We don't think so. I thought, okay. So I got picked up by a small school, and I started having a lot of success teaching young adults, and they were going on to getting published and fattening up their portfolios. And the opportunity came to talk to Kansas City Art Institute, and they brought me in, and I pitched them on what would be a class that would be 3 hours long for adults, 16 to 70, and that's the range of my class. I actually had a 70-year-old dear lady in there. The 16-year-old kept coming back and coming back, coming back. Julia Jackson, she actually went to work for Disney in California during her college days and came back here and did some anime. Now she's teaching at the Nelson Art Gallery and is a dear friend of mine. And when she's like, older. I don't want to name her age because it would tip it off. But she's got 3 lovely daughters and a great husband. So she kind of grew up in this class, and it worked well for her. Cartooning, comic book illustration, which is storyboarding, and sequential storytelling. And we would hit the ground running, and we would work our tails off and do very, very well. And I've had so much fun sharing with people.
Nice. So cartooning, storyboarding, and sequential storytelling.
Yeah, cartooning, comic book illustration, and sequential storytelling.
Explain sequential storytelling. What are you learning in there?
You are learning how to do storytelling, storyboards.
Okay.
So I give you a case in point. I got a call one day, and the guy says, I'm making a movie here in town. I got a grant, and I got some money. I'm making a Civil War movie. I'm doing Civil War stories by Ambrose Bierce, which is a great writer. And I'd like to know if you want to storyboard the movie. I said, sure. So I've signed a contract and worked at what would be, and I'm saying this because if you have any budding artists out there, the money was really, really good. So, and all art here is just freelance stuff because it doesn't pay the bills in a full-time status. But this was a good gig. It was every kid's dream come true to draw, Union soldiers and rebel soldiers on horses, and bang, 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 and fall over here, and punch the guy out. And those storyboards were used to the point that the gentleman that hired me said he was so impressed with the storyboards, would I just draw who the main characters should look like? And I did. And when he went into casting, he made sure they came very close to matching these illustrations. It just came from my imagination. So
nice. Okay, so then sequential storytelling is really deciding what images or pictures you need to create to tell the story you're trying to tell.
Yeah, because in essence, it's still comic book art. Yeah. It's still comic book illustration.
That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, if we look at this little prop I've got here, this is sequential storytelling. There's your opening shot. I just grabbed this and opened it. And here's how we move our eyes to the characters and where they're going to go and what they're going to do and what have you. And it becomes, all comics are storyboards for reading or for potentially could be a movie. But there's a story of two young college women at a Kinko's, and they're in a rush. They're just pushing their comic pages, black and white, through the Xerox machine at super speed. And there's a salesman there that works in intellectual properties. It's like, what are you guys doing? I've got to use a Xerox machine, because back in those days you had to go to Kinko's. And we're doing this for a class project. And he said, that's kind of neat looking. What is it? And he looked at it, pages coming out, and it was Ghost World. You have to Google that.
Okay.
And he was in intellectual properties. He said, that's really, really cool. I want to pitch that to my company and see if something doesn't happen with it. It became a feature film, and Scarlett Johansson was in it, and I forget who else. But, all storytelling, all these drawn-out dramas, from comics from Peanuts to comics to the movies, are all storyboarded.
I'm somewhat of an amateur filmmaker. I've made a few short films and done storyboarding, and really, so it's figuring out the story, what the story is you want to tell, and then figuring out the scenes or the images you need to capture to tell that story. My dogs are going crazy. Sorry.
That's okay, because what we're saying now is what I've taught my classes too. Your eye is the camera. Your eye is going to take me on that ride. You're going to take me up, and you're going to use a bird's eye view or worm's eye view. You're going to tilt the horizon. You're going to change the lighting. You're going to entice me when the murderer's hand comes in, and that's all you can see. It's like, oh, what is this here, this hand? Or again, the lighting or what have you. So, yeah.
That's great. I love that. That I may have to look into that class. So where people who want to come and find out about the class, what's the best way to find out more?
I don't teach there anymore. I teach out of my home now.
Okay.
Since COVID. Just get a hold of me.
Okay.
And if there are people that are interested in that, we'll talk about if it's worth your time and my time, because there are a lot of people that say, I really want to do this, and I'll say, okay, let me see your work. It's like, well, I haven't drawn for like 10 years. I did this when I was 7, and that's great. I'm always happy to give somebody some pointers. I did this 2 weeks ago. But before we move into a classroom situation where you have expectations from a syllabus that we decide to what you want to walk away with at the end of 6 weeks, we kind of take that by ear and make sure it's mutually beneficial. But you could contact me, and you can find me on Facebook, or my email is rstasi@kc.rr.com.
Okay, and the same on Facebook, is it just Rick Stacy?
Yeah.
Okay, so
RICKSTA, I'm looking right there. STASI. That's the Italian spelling, because that's what we are.
Nice. Okay, yeah. So not the Italian spelling of Stacy.
We're all the Italian spelling. We're spelling things all day, and that's what Italians do. So.
Well, the art of storytelling, is that something you feel is someone intrinsically knows, or can that be taught? I mean, deciding what you need to put into the comic book or the film to give that, to tell that story, because some things don't need to be in there, right?
Yeah. Sometimes less is more. I teach that too. Intrinsically, it's in you, but you have to create the craft, and you have to think about what you're doing. Or we go back to the hieroglyphics: cat's eye, naked lady, flaming torch, and a knife. But what we're doing now is we're saying, I'm going to take you for this exhilarating escape from reality into this wonderful story. So I'm going to take you high above Gotham City to the tallest building that there is. That I'm going to light the next scene this way. That I'm going to do. So that's where you look at your eye as a camera. You learn about POV, point of view, and you try to find a really, really entertaining way to tell your story. Quick case in point. I used to stand at the Art Institute and say, if I invited you to my house, I'd say, how do you get there? I'd say, you get on Shawnee Mission Parkway all the way to I-35 South, and then get off on Johnson Drive. It's like, okay. Or you could say, you slowly walk through this wooded forest. Then you come up on your car and make sure you take the gravel road that winds down into the one single lane bridge up in the hills so high where the daffodils bloom. You make it more colorful and make it pleasurable for them. Ultimately, they're going to find the same place, but which is the best route for their entertainment and pleasure?
Great. Exciting. I urge everyone to go out there, check out the, your Facebook page. You have a website also, right?
It's being redone. I got hacked by the Chinese hackers. So I got a placeholder there, which is good enough for right now. But you can get a hold of like a one-page bio and take a look at that and get a hold of me on Facebook, and I'm there.
Yeah,
or my email address too.
Email address. Did I see right? You've got a couple books out?
I have 2 books, and I have a double CD that I recorded.
Oh.
My first book, storytelling is storytelling. There's different ways to do it. And I love comics, but not just comics. And I was in a heavy corporate atmosphere with pressure and buyers and sellers. It's like being on the stock exchange. And I had 30 people all yelling stuff, and I was the creative director for this company, and I'm writing down notes for the year and budgets and stuff. I had 23 people that work for me. And a buddy of mine said, "Are you getting these figures?" I said, "I'm writing them down. I'm writing them down as fast as I can." And I'm writing, and all of a sudden I just kind of wrote, "Last night I dined with Frankenstein and Currier and Ives, discussing such and thus and much how paltry were our lives." And I kept it. Then I wrote that poem. Then I wrote a silly poem. Then I wrote some little soliloquies. Then I wrote some scripts. Then I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. Then I wrote some songs, which I do. And so my first book was called, I wonder if I have a copy here.
Yes.
Called Funny You Should Ask. Funny You Should Ask. Let me see. I'm looking with my telescopic vision. No. Funny You Should Ask. Musings in Verse for Better or Worse. And people said, "Well, we really like that little book." I think I do see it. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, grab
second.
it. I would love to see a copy.
Yeah.
So that's funny. Funny you should ask. Okay.
Yeah, I'll get it. And go to commercial.
We're going to commercial.
I have a dear friend of mine from my Hollywood days. It's Kathy Garver. Kathy Garver is an actress, and she started out the business by being the little girl in the last 5 minutes of the immortal 10 Commandments film with Charlton Heston. And she says, Moses, where are we going?" He goes, "Well, we're going out there in the promised land." And that little girl is Kathy Garver. She was on a sitcom in the late 60s and 70s called Family Affair on CBS. You may or may not have heard of that.
I recognize the name.
Buffy, Jody, and Sissy. Anyway, we became friends. So she set me up with a publisher for this book here, Funny You Should Ask, Musings in Verse for Better or Worse. And talked to the publisher, and he said, "You need to change this." And I said, "Why?" "If it's the way the page flows, that's fine," or something on production. He goes, "You need to change these poems and this and that." And I said, "No."
Yeah.
So what I did is I published it myself. And I'm in second printing of this, I think, maybe a third, I don't know. It's been a few years ago. But it's basically a nice book of text of these little things here. I'll see if there's anything here.
Yes, read us one. I'd love to hear one.
Okay, I got a good one right here for you. It describes our world right now, I think. Give me just...
So this is Rick Stacy reading from his Funny You Should Ask.
Yeah. And let this be a lesson to all of us in today's time. Different thoughts between some friends means sometimes that a friendship ends. Now, I hope that's not our case. I can't replace your space. You're more important than just opinion, and neither one of us need claim dominion. What good would it ever do if I'd lose the friend in you? We're a work in progress, and we're never ending, so there's no attacks and no defending. No quarrel, and let's have no fuss, 'cause we may just rub off on us. So, There you go, sir.
That's great, Rick.
One of many in here too. That's just lots of stuff. And then people said, that was good. I do some voice work too. I'm very raspy today because of my old age and allergies and stuff like that. They said you ought to do a recorded version of that. And I thought, if I did a recorded version of anything, I'd pull the best out of there, and I'd keep writing, and I would be very creative with music and sound effects, and I'd bring in some guest voices too. So I created a double album that's recorded on CD called Talking to Myself to You. That's basically what this is. So this is my first double album. It's kind of shiny on there with the lights and stuff. You can see it.
There we go.
And I did it, I thought, it's autobiographical and sometimes kind of laughable. But not everything's funny. There's a lot of pain and just humanity in here from the experiences that I've seen or that I've had. And it's 60 tracks with a lot of guest voices on here too, and some music that I've written and recorded. Find me on YouTube,
okay.
Rick Stacey on YouTube, and you'll see, gosh, what's the name of it? And just look for me on YouTube, and you'll find a lot of the readings out of these pieces are up there too. And I think it's called Ninth Street Presents.
Ninth Street Presents,
but
okay.
Find me, and you'll hear my stories and the sound effects and stuff like that. Towards the end of that, I thought, I'm still writing, and I want to get stuff out because it does me no good having it in my heart and in my mind. But I'm at the point now where I'm going to give a leave behind to people because you never know when you're going to leave. Mm-hmm. And I put together a compilation of a lot of new things, but a lot of stuff from the first book and from the double CD, and I did my last piece here. This is Letters from the Exodus. Whee! Hold on over here. You can see that okay?
Yep, right there. There you go. Oh, look at that. That's great.
Yeah.
Letters from...
And it's my definitive anthology of poetry, music, musings, songs, and scripts, but there's artwork in it.
Oh, okay.
There's photos in it. There's cartoons in it. There's, gosh, I'll try to do this.
Oh, yeah. Was that a dandelion?
Yes. Yeah. And that's a little poem about my wife and her. There's little lectures I've done. There's experiences I've had. There's one-act plays in a couple of pages. There's just all kinds of stuff in here. Here's some of my friends model for some of the pages in here. That's Teresa Zirkle. Teresa does a lot of voice work with me, and I love her dearly, as I do Julia Jameson too.
That's great.
Julia Jackson, I'm sorry. But you ever have a day where you feel like just emotionally things are just nuts, and that's where I do an art piece like this. So
nice.
Which is quite different. So this is my last book, and I've written a couple songs after this, but I don't plan on doing any big publishing of anything going forward, because how can you miss me if I don't go away? Yeah. And this is kind of, again, my leave behind, so I'm going to leave it behind. Here's another great picture, I think, of when you just feel like rage.
Oh, yeah.
Life can be too crazy, right?
That's a serious rage pictures. So where can people pick up the books and the CD?
From me.
From you.
Only from
directly.
me. Yeah.
So just hit you up on Facebook?
Yeah, exactly. I've had them in stores. I take them to shows and stuff like that, but I thought, I'm not going to order anymore, I don't think, at this point. Got enough to share with people who are interested, and because they're so terribly personal, people say, why isn't that on Amazon? Why? I said, because I don't want to, and I don't have to. Yeah. If people are interested in these very, very personal musings and experiences, then I want them to have it. And we'll take those next steps at the shows or through Facebook or whatever, if a person wants a copy of something here.
And are you still out? You're doing the con tour. What's your next con that you're going to be at?
Going to do ICT in Wichita. I'm a guest there again. Thank you, Richard Cathy. I'll be there August 31st and the next couple of days after that, September 1st and 2nd. And again, I'll be at Fort Leonard Wood in September, and we're finalizing what's going to happen there. I'm going to be there. The Extreme Con is what
Extreme
it's called.
Con. I was going to ask you that. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's in Fort Leonard Wood.
Yes. Are you familiar with Extreme Con?
I'm not familiar with Extreme Con. It's one I've not done yet. I love cons, and I attend as many as I can. So I should be at the ICT. I'm planning on being there. Hopefully
come on
both days.
Because we're there all the time. Yeah.
Both days?
Yeah, we'll be there.
I'll either be wearing this. I don't know if you can see over here. This guy over here. Let's see if I can. There we go. I'll either be wearing that one.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Or I've got a little Jawa that I like to wear too. He's probably my favorite.
Now I have to ask you, when you wear that stormtrooper outfit, you're a local person here in town that does that?
Yeah, I'm one of the 501st members here in town.
And do you happen to know anybody at Commerce Bank?
No, I mean I may.
Here's why I asked that. My son has a lot of he works at Commerce, and he has a lot of friends that are a part of the group that dresses up as stormtroopers. Okay. And they come to all the shows.
Well, so is he one of, or his friends dress up, or his friends are in the group?
His friends do.
Okay, well I'm sure I know his friends then, because we're a pretty tight, close group. So, anything new? Any new comic stuff you're working on?
I'm looking at where I am in my life right now, and I do the art that I enjoy doing. Good. Because if somebody said, "Hey, do you want to do an issue of name the comic book?" I don't know. Probably no, because it's an awful lot of work, and the people that influenced me, that were my comrades in arms, are either retired or passed away. I mean, we're talking about the Julie Schwartzes and the Shelley Moldovs and Stan, of course, who's like a friend of the family all those years. But probably wouldn't do anything for comics, but I may pursue my own. I have a intellectual property called Danger Dog.
Ooh, I like that.
And
very alliterative.
Yeah, well, it gets better than that. It's DANGER and it's double D for Danger Dog and double G for copyright purposes. But it's along the lines of the Looney Tunes cartoons. It's that kind of style of artwork, that kind of story, silly stuff. So I've talked to some people. Paul Kupperberg's a friend of mine, and maybe doing some mentoring with me. And we worked at DC together for years. He still does stuff in the comics realm. And Rick Burchett, who's a great illustrator and inker, might be a great inker for this. So I was wondering about doing doing my own financing or putting it online for Kickstarter or whatever. I don't know. But if that would be it, that would be the last thing, too, that I think that I could do at this point that I'm inspired to do.
I like the sound of Danger Dog. I like the sound of that.
Danger Dog, you would love him because he is a dog, of course, and he is an entrepreneur, and he's a soldier of fortune, and he's very wealthy. And by day, we know him as Clark Barker. So makes it kind of fun. And his arch enemies are so much fun, too. They're there to foil the kidnapping of the young pop star, Brittany Spaniel.
Brittany Spaniel. Nice.
Yeah.
Does Danger Dog have a catchphase?
Not that I've come up with yet.
No, up and away. No.
No, not just yet.
All right. I'll be looking forward to that.
I did Darkwing Duck for a while too.
I
wrote and drew that for a few years as a cover artist too, and it just stays in the back of your mind. Let's get dangerous. So
good.
It's fun.
Well, Rick, this was so much fun. I enjoyed getting to know you more. I'm gonna
thank you for having me.
I'm gonna definitely talk to you at ICT and grab a book. So bring me a copy.
Oh, yeah. I will.
I'll be excited to get that. But yeah, well, thank you for your time, and I can't wait to dig in and read your top 5. I got to know. Did you upgrade the cape? Did you move from the towel?
Oh. Yeah, you want a story?
I do.
I had a friend of mine. I had a friend of mine in high school. I won't name any names. Jeannie Holmes. That she was studying the sewing or whatever 101 in high school, and she made me a Superman suit. And I designed it too, so it was just perfect. So in my senior year, I would wear it under my clothes, and I'd sneak out and come in the window in a Superman suit and all that crazy stuff too. When the Chiefs won their very first Super Bowl, me and the guys skipped school. I had a trench coat on, and we went downtown to Kansas City, Missouri, and as the Chiefs are coming in the parade and all this kind of crazy fun stuff, I got up on a ledge about that high. I didn't bite through my tongue this time, and I waited for the TV cameras, and I waited for Len Dawson and all the great Chiefs, and this is a job for Superman. I pulled it open, I jumped off, I floated down right in front of one of the cars where Bruce Rice was Channel 5's commentator, and I looked like I hit him right in the snoot. He was just mesmerized. He actually went to the report that night and said, "There's some kid out here about 10 or 12 years old in a Superman suit." And I thought, I'm 18, I'm shaving twice a day. But yeah, I upgraded from the towel in the back to a pretty good Superman suit. So
Tell me you kept it. Tell me you're wearing it to ICT.
no, it just fell apart. Yeah. But I have every T-shirt in the world and many of my designs. So this is my na.
Oh, I like the Batman shirt. I like the Batman shirt.
And I hit a pivot. I hit a pivotal birthday a few years ago. Of course, anymore if you're still alive, they're all pivotal. And I bought a handful of Superman shirts with every different George Reeves this one in black and white. And my wife looked at me and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm unpacking these shirts, short sleeve, long sleeve. And she goes, "How many Superman shirts do you think you have to have?" And I said, "Enough to get me to the other side." So So take that.
There's no such thing as too much. There's no such thing as too much when it comes to fandom. That's that's the Star Wars. There's never too much. I didn't even get there. I didn't even get to Lucasfilms, but we'll save that for another. We'll save that for ICT. You can tell. You can tell me all about Lucasfilms. I want to know what you did. I'm assuming it was in the comics, so you'll have to tell me all about it.
No, you know what it was? I did the cards for him. I did some collector's cards for sketch cards.
Nice.
And original pieces. And I thought, do I want to do this because Star Wars is so big? And I thought, yeah, I'm not going to miss this chance.
Heck no.
And I might have some copies on file someplace here where I scanned in, but it really, really stretched me, which is good. And for that reason, it was a lot of fun.
It's good. It's good to stretch and grow.
Absolutely.
When you stop growing, I mean, why are you doing it? You got to challenge and grow.
Absolutely.
Got to challenge and grow.
Right.
All right, my friend. Well, you have a wonderful evening.
Do the same.
Enjoy this sultry Kansas City weather. I think it's finally cooling off a little bit. So, thanks a lot.
It's nice.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me, and sure hope to see you at ICT.
Definitely.